know this sounds really weird, but I've been wanting to do a frog-themed dragon for quite a while. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today we are going to be making a wyvern themed off of a poison dart frog. I thought the coloring and different stuff would be really fun, and to kind of give more of a froggy look to a dragon would be really cute. Anyways, let's get started. So my idea for our dragon is going to be more closer to a wyvern style. I really like the idea of the hands being wings, so we're going to kind of make something like webbed fingers that are going to turn into wings. I'm kind of also like in between doing a poison dart frog style mainly for the colors, and then there's a actual flying frog that kind of has a very similar way of moving around. The webbing of their feet are huge and they use them to glide, but I'm going to do something a little bit more dragon shaped for that. But before we get to that, we're going to start working on the clay pieces. I'm going to mainly do a face and then the back feet, and then we're going to have a bunch of resin claws. For the face, I want it to look like a frog, but I don't want it to look like a frog. I want it to not have that super short snout that frogs have. I want it to be more elongated and dragon-like. So I'm gonna try and kind of have like a style in between the shape of a dragon and a frog. And hopefully we get something that works. For the eyes, I have these really pretty pink looking frog type eyes that I really want to use for this piece. Also, I think the pink will stand out because our primary colors are going to be blue and orange, and I think these just will pop compared to getting like a blue pair of eyes or an orange pair. I think these will just really stand out. So I'm going to place these on the face, figure out how I want them. I kind of want it to be looking a little bit more forward, that way it looks more like a predator. If you didn't know, predator type creatures have their eyes set more forward, and then prey type creatures have them more set to look out to the side. I find this little detail very helpful when designing creatures. It really does help to kind of give your creatures a backstory, like what would they eat, where would they live kind of thing, and it really helps make them look a little bit more lifelike if you kind of have a backstory to why they look the way they look. Okay, so I've got majority of my face figured out for my creature, and I really do want it to have more of a soft look, but I still want it to look like a predator. So with making the mouth, I decided to add just 2 teeth sticking out. I decided to have them sticking upwards for some reason. I thought it just looked better on the face the way everything lays out. And I'm going to leave the lips nice and smooth to continue looking similar to a frog. I'm going to also continue that with the texture of the face. I'm really not going to add a lot of rough scales or anything like that. I want to have it very smooth and sleek. That way it actually does still look like an amphibian. I don't want it to look like it has these rough textures on it. Moving on to making the clay feet, I want to try something a little bit different. I'm going to end up using resin claws for the hands / wings, and I want the claws on the feet to basically be the same. So I'm going to be using those instead of making clay ones. So we're going to sculpt the majority of the foot except for the claws and the very ends of the toes. So I have a pretty simple wire frame, different from what I normally do because I'm not going to have wires for the toes. I just need something to build my clay off of. So I'm going to start by taking some pretty thick strips of clay and I'm going to lay them out on my wire frame. I'm going to wrap them around and make sure to cover up the wires completely, other than where I'm actually going to hold the wire frame while I'm doing my sculpting. Once I have that laid out, I'm going to start bulking up the very end where we're going to connect the toes. I just need more clay there so I have more surface area to add those toes. Then I'm going to take the toes that I want to add. I'm going to be adding 4 of them for each foot, and I'm going to place them in the clay and start blending the clay into the resin that I have. I'm then going to take my tools and kind of clean up and make it look like the toes are a little bit longer by sculpting that portion of the clay that's nice and thick. So I'm going to try and make it look more broken up than it actually is. And then once I have all my toes in place and I've cleaned everything up, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of detail. I'm going to add a very soft bit of line work to make it look a little bit scaly, but I do want them to still look soft. I don't want them to look rough. So it's just a few little lines here and there on the front of the foot. And then once I have both feet done, we can take those and our clay face and we can put them in the oven to bake. I'm going to be baking mine for about 45 to 55 minutes at 275 Fahrenheit. And then once our clay pieces are out of the oven and have cooled to touch, we can start on the painting. So I'm going to keep my fabric kind of close so I can match the colors, because I want the clay pieces to basically be the exact same color as the fabric. So I'm going to try and match the orange and blue that I mainly need, and we're going to start painting those onto the face and feet. I'm going to start with orange first. I'm going to be doing the top portion of the face, and then I wanted to have a patch of orange on the front of the foot, just to throw in a little bit more orange to the back portion of the body, because the way I have everything laid out, I have a lot more blue in the back, and I needed to have just a little bit more orange. But you'll see all the colors of the body once we start putting everything together. Once I'm done adding the orange paint to the face and feet, I'm then going to start laying out the blue. Now the blue fabric that I'm trying to match is actually a blue leopard, so once I have the base color of the blue down, we're going to be adding spots of a brighter blue and black spots as well. So that's going to be really fun to try and make it look like leopard. And then to finish the face, I just need to paint our teeth. I have an off-white that I'm going to go over them with, and then once the paint has dried, I just need to scratch away the excess paint that got on our glass eyes. So I'm going to clean those up, and then our face is pretty much done. And then for the feet, I'm going to be using that same off-white color, and I'm going to be painting our claws. Now we can start on sewing, and I can kind of show you how the body is going to look now. So this is my pattern, and you can see that the majority of the body is actually its hands, which are going to be the wings. I'm going to have these completely posable, so all the fingers are going to be posable, and they're going to have resin claws at the end. And then we have all the other pieces for the body, the arms, the body itself, the piece that's going to be the belly, and then the inside portions of the legs. So let's get the body pieces put together first. So for the body itself, I have the left and right, which are also the outer portion of the legs. I've kind of combined them. And then the back of it is going to be in orange. So I'm going to sew these together. And then the neck is going to be divided into two colors as well. I have the bottom half of the neck, the blue, and the top half, the orange. So we're going to get those sewn together so we have pieces for the neck and body. And then for the tail, we have a left and right for this as well, and I'm going to be sewing down just the top portion for now. I'm going to leave the bottom portion open, that way we can stuff and close it when we're putting the body together. Once we have the tail done, we're going to take the neck that we made and the body, and we're going to sew all three of these together to make one solid piece for the body. I'm also going to take the inside portion of both of the legs and we're going to sew those in place as well. So we're going to sew down just the fronts of the legs. Just like the tail, we're going to leave the back of them open, that way we can put everything together on our wireframe. Okay, now let's get our wings together. So for the hand portion of the wings, I'm going to be kind of layering my fabric to get the webbing of the fingers to be a different color. So the fingers are going to be orange and the webbing is going to be blue. And funny thing is, when I was putting this together, I actually got them reversed. I had a completely different idea of what I wanted the wings to look like, but I'm happy that I made this mistake because I think it came out better. So I'm going to have to do this for both sides of the hand portion of our wing. And then once we have both sides done, we can pin them together and sew around them. While we're doing the sewing, we're going to be leaving the ends of the toes open, so you'll need to leave a gap in between when you're sewing. So just make sure that you don't sew the very tips of the toes closed. I'm then going to flip my fabric right side out, and then I'm going to take my needle and thread and we're going to start stitching around the webbing. And the reason I'm doing this is because when we stuff our hands, we don't want to stuff the webbing, we just want to stuff the toes. So by stitching around the webbing, we can separate the two areas. Moving on to the arm portion of the wing, I'm going to have the top portion solid orange, but I want to add a little bit of blue to the bottom. So I'm going to be basically having this portion broken up into two different colors, and I'm going to stitch them together. And then once we have that done, we can sew down the very front portion of the arm. And then we do have a webbing portion for this part of the wing as well, so each part of that is going to have a top and bottom. I'm going to pin the base portion, the very edge of the wing, together, and then I'm going to flip it and sew the other sides closed. So we're not going to add the arm portion to the hand portion of the wing just yet, but we can add the wires and the claws. So I already stuffed all the toes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the wire that we have the claw on through each toe. So I'm going to run that through, and then I'm going to glue the fabric around the base of that claw. I'm going to do it to all of the toes, and then once we have all the wires in place, we can take them and we can wrap them together to make one solid wire frame. So after that, we can't really work on the rest of the wing until we put the body together. So I'm going to take the wireframe that I have for the body, I made this ahead of time, and we're going to start putting our fabric on it. So I'm going to take that body fabric that we sewed earlier and I'm going to put it over our wireframe. I'm mainly just going to have to cut two really tiny holes for the wires for the wings to go through. So I'm going to drape that over, and then we're going to take our clay head and we're going to glue it to the wire for the neck. Once we have that in place and we've given it time to dry, we can take the fabric for the neck and glue it around the base of the head. You'll notice that it doesn't reach all the way around, and that's because we still have our fabric that is our belly fabric, which is also technically the under portion of our neck as well. So I'm going to glue that in place, and then we can start sewing and closing up our body. Make sure to stuff the body as you're sewing it to make it easier. So we're going to stuff, sew all the way until we get to the very end of the tail. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start adding our back legs first. So I'm going to adjust the wires and make sure that they're the length that I need them, and then we're going to wrap the wires that are sticking out of our clay legs to the wire frame. So the main body wire frame is a 16 gauge, and I'm going to be wrapping them together using a 20 gauge. After that, I'm going to take the fabric for the legs and I'm going to glue it around the base of our clay foot. Let it dry for a little bit, and then we can stuff and close up both of our legs. Now we can start working on our wings. So I'm going to add the arm portion real quick. I'm going to sew it in place on the body, just going around where we have that wire sticking out. Then we're going to take the hands and we're going to add those to the wire frame. So the wire is sticking out, we're going to combine them, make sure everything is the correct length, and then we can take the arm portion and sew it around the base of the hand portion. So we're just going to combine everything real quick. So now we need to stuff and close up the back of the arm. The only thing different from doing the back legs is we also need to add that webbing in place. So while we're sewing it, we're also going to be sewing that webbing in place. Now at this point, I was debating on calling it done, but it just felt like we were missing something. I wanted to add a little bit more detail to the neck, so I decided to make a few frills. So I'm going to have 2 frills going down the sides of the neck. So I'm going to sew those real quick, and then we can add them to the body. Okay guys, and here is our finished poison dart glider. I had so much fun with this piece. I actually really like the orange and blue together. They're not normally colors I work with together, so it was a refreshing project to work on, something just a little different. And also, I almost didn't do his little frill things at the end. He just felt like he was missing something, so I threw these on, and I feel like his head just looks a lot better. It balances out better with his giant, like, hand wings. So I'm gonna have this piece on my website. I'll have the links down below to it. So if anyone is interested in giving him a home, or any of my other pieces, because I do have quite a bit in my shop right now, you can check that out. Also, I have a bunch of art supplies linked down below that I like to use to make my art dolls. So if you're just curious to see what I use, or if you want to try and make your own art doll, you can check those links out too. Now, these are affiliated links, so if you do buy anything through them, they do help to support the channel. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!